Right, welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Now, the electoral body, INEC, has rejected the petition for the recall of Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan, saying it has not met the requirement of a section of the Constitution. The Commission said that a petition for the recall of a senator must comply with the provision of the Constitution, which requires the signatures of more than a half of the registered voters in the constituency. According to the Commission, the total number of registered voters in the Kogi Central Senatorial District is 474,554. That's more than one half of the figure, which is 237,278 voters. That would constitute half. INEC said across the 902 polling units, it ascertained 208,132 signatures from the submission made by the petitioners, and that translates to 43.86% of the registered voters, which falls short of the constitutional requirement by 29,146 signatories. Meanwhile, constituents of Kogi Central thanked INEC for validating the 208,132 signatures in the recall petition against suspended Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan. Although the petition fell short of the required 50% threshold, the validation confirmed strong disapproval of the senator, according to this group. The group expressed confidence in INEC's transparency and vowed to continue pursuing her recall for misconduct and divisiveness. They criticized Akpoti-Uduaghan for her recent comments, calling for a dignified and collaborative representation in the district. Well, joining us now on the morning show to put all these issues together and for some clarification of INEC's decision is Victoria Eta-Messi, INEC Director of Voter Education and Publicity. Good morning, ma'am, and welcome to the program.
Good morning, Vimbai. Good morning, Dr. Abati, and good morning, Rufai.
Morning. Well, Madam, thank you for joining us. Well, the story is already well known in the public domain that INEC has declared that the petition by the constituents in Kogi Central didn't meet the requirement under Section 69. But the question is, what is next? Some of those constituents from Kogi Central have issued a statement saying that, they are going to collaborate with INEC and start the process of recall afresh. Now, do they have the wiggle room to do that? Or the process with what INEC said yesterday has ended and that no further action can be taken on the matter for our education?
Thank you once more for having me. So the Constitution is silent on that. The law is silent on the recall process being started afresh. And we're not sure, even if that were to happen, we're not sure of the window that is required before a resubmission can be done. What the Commission did yesterday was to state that based on what was submitted earlier, the threshold was not met. They required 50% plus 1. But what was got during the physical inspection of the signatures was 43.8%. So as it is, what we have on ground has been done with. It is a done deal. And so that process has come to an end in line with the provision of the Constitution. So if they were to start afresh now, well, I don't know. I don't know what the experts would advise us on that. But the law is silent on them representing, and how soon they should do that, we do not know. But when they come up with another petition, then I think we'll cross the bridge when we get there. But then the issue is, if they could only get 208,000 signatures, where are they now going to get the shortfall from? So that is a question to ponder.
Thank you so much. And while many are celebrating this outcome as a victory where INEC has done justice, there's a little bit of criticism. And that criticism lies around the fact that this petition was instituted by a group called the Kogi Central Political Frontier, which is not known to be registered on any platform. So some are asking, how is it that this petition even got this far when the petitioners themselves are not in a formally constituted body?
Yeah, so the Constitution again is silent. It did not state. Can I talk?
Yes, please, go ahead. Do go ahead.
Can I proceed? Okay. So the Constitution did not say that they must be a registered entity. It just said constituents who have lost confidence in their representative can seek their recall. So these are a group of people who came together. They just chose to give themselves a name. So I don't think it was necessary for us to go to the CAC to confirm if there is such a registered body. All we need is for the constituents to come together, put their signatures together, and naturally there would be need for us to have like leaders within the local government who would be guiding this process. So they just chose to give themselves that name. And I don't think it was necessary for the commission to bellyache over that.
Okay, good to see you, ma'am. First question will be, is there any verification process of some sort that INEC goes through? Because most of the people that filed this recall were politically exposed and biased. In fact, they had jobs with the government of Kogi State. Is there any way they were going to look into that? And another question will be a scenario planning question. How will INEC have verified those signatures in the first place, owing to the fact that there'd been a lot of videos circulating of how these registers were written, allegedly, and people were imputing names and signing signatures of people? How will that have been verified?
So INEC cannot rely on what it sees on social media. The law clearly states the processes that need to be followed for a recall to be valid. And so the first step that we took was to ascertain that they even met the threshold, that the signatures, whether forged or not, were up to the required number of 237,000 plus. And that was the stage where we were when we realized that they didn't even have the 237,000 signatures. If they had met the threshold, that's when the real verification would have been conducted. And so a notification would have been sent out to the member being recalled, to the presiding officer of the applicable house as well, and again to the public. And then the commission would proceed to begin to make preparations to deploy men and materials to the field for verification. And that is where the real work is, because all those who signed the petition were expected to turn out to be verified and authenticated using the beavers. And that is where the work, the main work or task is. And that is why it has been difficult for us to successfully take a recall process to the end, because all those people who signed, so even if we saw videos on social media, during the verification process, all of those people would have to turn out with their PVCs to be verified and authenticated.
Okay, the first question.
And it is only at that point that we would be able to proceed to the next level.
Okay, what if, the first question I ask is, what if the people that submitted the petition obviously were slanted because they were working for the incumbent state government and everything, you know, and people say it's a political witch hunt? What of that area in the first place? Because that was the case with the petition. Most of the people that filed this petition, a lot of people have condemned them because there were people working for the incumbent in the states.
Again, the commission relies on what the law states. Even if we saw things on social media, we cannot keep aside the provisions of the law and say we want to be guided by what is being peddled on the social media. Whether they were supporters or sympathizers of a rival political party or political group, the issue is they were constituents. And so they had the right to seek a recall of their member. And so if we had gone to the field for verification, that's when we would be able to ascertain whether we can continue or not. If they're able to mobilize the people, it's within their right. Whether it has a political coloration or connotation, well, we cannot really rely on that, as is to follow the steps clearly outlined by the law, by the Constitution and the Electoral Act.
Okay, madam.
So yes, even if it may seem as if it was a political witch hunt, but INEC could not truncate or stop the process because of that. It had to follow through to the end.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we were able to ascertain that they didn't even have the threshold for us to deploy to the field.
Okay, madam. INEC is not the most popular of institutions in Nigeria. Every petitioner will say, oh, INEC didn't do a good job. BVAS did not work. Why is INEC portal always failing? INEC has been compromised. But in this particular instance, INEC is being praised by quite a substantial number of people to say, oh, INEC is following the law. INEC has rejected the recall. How does that make you, your team, your, establishment feel in-house? And what does it say about voter, psychology, voter attitude in Nigeria? Because now all of a sudden it's like, oh, INEC has done something that a lot of people are pleased with. Because tomorrow they may come after INEC again. No, just have one by-election. You will hear stories about technology and beavers. But how do you react to the support you seem to have received for what looks like a populist outcome?
Yeah, INEC is used to receiving the heat all the time. So it goes with the duty, or it goes with our job. And so we just stick to trying to be the best and to serve the people as best as we can. So like you said, last week they celebrated INEC when the press release was brought out that the covering letter did not meet acceptable standard. And the very next day, everybody was flogging INEC, but we're merely doing our job because we said they did not have the required addresses and contacts. And because of that, we couldn't proceed. And within 24 hours, they came up with that. And so we had no excuse not to reinitiate or continue with the process. And the moment we did that, they came following and pursuing us and saying, oh, INEC is at it again. Now we have again followed the law, done what is expected of us, and we're like the sought-after bride. But we're not carried away by that because we know that in the very next minute, they could turn their back on us again. So we'll just stick and try to do the best that we can all the time.
Absolutely. Of course, all Nigerians are asking for is just accountability, transparency, and credibility. And so we hope this is the first of a new chapter. But let's go back to some of the issues that transpired. Of course, there's a group, the group of petitioners who are saying that the fact that the 208,000 plus signatures have even been recognized is a big source of celebration for them, and it is a referendum of sorts for them that shows that there is a lack of popularity for the senator. You've already clarified that these signatures have not even been vetted, so we don't know how authentic the 200,000 are because you had not gotten to the stage, you were not able to get to the stage where you start combing through. My question is, when we vote, our vote is our secret. But when we want to recall, we have to now come and be identified and verified. I'm just playing devil's advocate here. It almost seems like the system is rigged against recalling senators because who truly is going to put themselves at risk to be identified as being part of a group who want to institute a recall unless they are backed by a bigger force? What's your take on that contradiction, where when I vote, it's my secret, but if I want to recall, I must be identified?
Yeah. They did not hide their identity when they came to submit the petition. So I think at that point, whether they are being used or not, I think they would have crossed the hurdle. And at that point, they just couldn't care whether anybody identifies them or not. All they want is to have their representative out. So at that point, there is really no secrecy. So you come and your signature is there anyway. So for record purposes, we already know, or whoever is interested would know the people that signed the petition. And when we get to the field, we're going with that register of petitioners, and that is what would be used during verification if we had gotten to that level. And so all those people would need to turn up with their PVCs to be verified and authenticated and append their signature again. So it's no longer, at that point, it's not a secret.
But who will show up when, unless you have some sort of guarantee that you'll be safe and protective? Who is going to show up?
They will show up. After all, some people submitted the petition to the commission and it was televised. And they had no qualms about that. So their representatives that signed alongside them naturally would show up if they're real, if they're authentic. So the verification would have helped us ascertain or confirm if these were forged signatures or if truly these people appended their signatures to the petition that was submitted to the commission.
Okay, so there's a pending ex parte order over this recall. In March, Federal High Court in Kogi issued an interim injunction, and I don't know what's the process like as regards the case. Is it still on? Is it still a live case? Because Senator Akpoti did go to court, and the Federal High Court in Lokoja issued an interim order restraining INEC, and that case was supposed to be up for 6th of May at some point. But they, rescinded that order at a point. I don't know if that case is still live.
I do not think so. I do not think so because the commission was not guided by that. It was just guided by the provisions of the law with regard to conducting a recall. So I don't think the
restraining order
was a part of the consideration.
Okay, but the restraining order was rescinded almost immediately. Initially, it was set for the 6th of May, and so that all the parties will be heard in the case. I don't know, maybe you can check with your legal team if that case is still live as regards this, because since the recall is not sailing through now, obviously, it's good to save INEC some legal money rather than still going ahead and getting lawyers for representation in that case. So maybe you should check with your legal team, because that was actually on. Senator Akpoti did go to court to restrain INEC on the recall. Dr. Abati?
Okay, Madam. Well, I don't know. If you look at the laws, Section 69, Section 110 of the Constitution, Section 113, 116, of the Electoral Act, Section 12B of the INEC rules and regulations. Do you think it's really possible to recall any lawmaker at any level in this country, given the cumbersome nature of the process itself in terms of the legal provisions? Is it possible to recall anybody? Because some people have said, look, you really cannot recall anybody because the process is not, it's easier to remove a governor, under Section 305 than all those other sections to remove a lawmaker. To remove a lawmaker is difficult, but to remove a governor, you just need, somebody invoking, some part of the Constitution. Do you share that view? Or you think that the law is good enough as it is with regard to recall of lawmakers?
The law as it is difficult. Like I said, we all appreciate the number of registered voters in the first place that brought up the member representing them, and indeed even the losers in that election. It was a little above 100,000, and now we need 237,000. And again, looking at the associated issues, those who probably would have traveled, those who are no longer within that vicinity, and the rest of it. So by the time you take out all of those, it will be very difficult to be able to come up with that number of people. But nothing is impossible. But then the verification exercise would have proven or given us a true picture of the situation if we had gotten there. I agree with you that it's easier to remove a governor because that is by impeachment, or an executive anyway, that is by impeachment, than to remove a legislator. Again, the ball lies in the court because they are the lawmakers. So it's within their purview to amend the law to make it workable or achievable. But as it is difficult. But there's nothing the commission can do aside from adhering strictly to what the law provides and going on with the process whenever such demand is made.
All right. What we're
so the legislators actually are in a better position to change the law if they actually want it to be changed or amended.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Now, this has been a learning experience for several people because many wouldn't have appreciated how complex this recall process is and how steep the parameters are. Any plans to go around and do some, as you are Director of Voter Education and Publicity, what are the plans we have to get people to become more knowledgeable about the power they have as constituents? Because most people feel once the election is over, it's over. See you after 4 years. Any plans you have?
Yeah, we have plans. We've been working. We will work harder. We engage with civil society organizations. Recall that voter education is not the singular responsibility of the electoral management body. The political parties are also supposed to enlighten and sensitize their members. Civil society is also there. So we're working hand in hand. And we'll try to do more engagement going forward. Even though some of that has been done, maybe we need to do a little more. So we'll continue pressing on and try to make sure that people understand the consequences of their actions and inactions. Because to be fair, the recall process was actually to hand over powers to the constituents so that if their representative is not representing them well, or they no longer have confidence in their representative, that gives them the power and the right to pull the person back out. So it actually has its own good side. It's just that the laws around it or guiding that process is a bit cumbersome as it is.
Okay. How much would it have cost INEC if we had gone through the full gamut of this recall process? How much has this process of sieving all you have sieved as a document to be able to discover that there were just 209,000 signatures and names in there, how much has that process cost INEC so far? But if we had gone through the process of going to the polling units, referendum and all of that, how much will it have cost INEC for a recall, just one of this recall?
So for the in-house physical verification, I don't think there was cost attached to that because it was done in-house. So the petition and the signatures were submitted to the commission, and so the relevant department physically did a head count, so to speak, of the signatures that were attached to the petition. So I don't think there was cost attached to that. But if we had to go to the field for verification, then a budget would have been drawn up. But since we didn't get to that level, we had not drawn up a budget. And note that we had 902 polling units that we would have had to go to. So we would have had to engage verification officers, 3 per polling unit. So 3 verification officers per polling unit times 902 polling units. And then you also have the collation officers at all the levels. So you have the RA 57 RAs for the five LGAs, and the LGA collation officers, the constituency collation officers, the monitors, and then naturally even the member being recalled would also have had to expend some money, because the law provides that the member being recalled has the right to appoint her agent in all the polling units and collation centers. That would have cost, because that is logistics he or she would have had to think about. So not just the commission, the person being recalled, and the people also recalling, the people also seeking the recall of their member would also have had to expend some money, because they also would need to have agents in all the polling units and the collation centers to ensure that everybody's interest was guaranteed and protected.
Okay,
so we hadn't gotten to that. If we had confirmed that we had met, that the petition met the acceptable threshold, then a budget would have been drawn up and would know how much was required of us to execute that process.
Okay, madam, this is politics. High wire politics, with so many stakeholders involved on all sides. How much political pressure that that INEC is facing on account of this recall process, in Kogi Central? I don't want to hear nobody is pressurizing INEC. just tell us, honest conversation, Madam, did you hear me?
I am not aware. I heard you. In truth, in actual fact, I am not aware of any pressure. If there is any, I am not aware. So you said you don't want to hear that there is none. I am not aware that there is any pressure. And I would very much doubt if there was any pressure on the commission. The commission is just focused on ensuring that the law is followed to the end.
Okay.
I hope that answers your question, Dr.
Well, I'm still trying to process the information. I was wondering whether there have been phone calls, there have been some visits, there have been some pressures about how INEC should go about its work in this particular matter, since it's quite a challenging assignment.
Not to my knowledge.
Oh, okay. Maybe if you hear something, you will come back and tell us, because they say if you hear something, say
we'll
something.
Let you know.
Okay.
Say something. I'll very much tell you that.
If you say that, that's comforting, very comforting. We feel very comforted by that. But goodness me, the Nigeria we know sometimes can be very funny. But I want to go back, to this recall process. And these are just scenarios now. In a case where we'll have to do a referendum on the candidate, where the people will have to vote a yes or no, we'll have to print new ballots, right? For that?
Yeah.
And that's going to be part of the additional cost. And you will still have had to use NURTW for the logistics, the pre-existing logistics.
Yeah.
At a time where a lot of people think NURTW is normally skewed towards the incumbent government of any state. And at a time when we've been able to establish that this attempt of recall was, made by people that were currently working. And it's not social media. I have facts that lady was working for the government. She was a senior special assistant of some sort in the government. So it's not social media, it's facts. And at a time where people think that there's a leaning of the state's government involved in all of this, does that not taint the integrity of INEC in some way, if that had happened?
So what are the alternatives? NURTW is supposed to be privately run. That was why INEC chose to work with them with regard to moving men and material to the field, to the polling units and the collation centers. That was why we stayed away from using government-owned transport bodies. So really, what are the alternatives? The commission cannot afford to buy its own vehicles. The number of vehicles that are required for such magnitude of movement. So I don't know what the alternatives are.
No, the alternative will have probably been private people rather than NURTW, because NURTW is not privately run. I'll give you an instance. The elected president of the national president of NURTW is known to officially frolic with incumbent APC. That's another fact, empirical fact I'm giving you. You can check it out. So, and this question goes to the question about using NURTW for the logistics of INEC.
INEC also uses, it's not just NURTW, it also uses NAR, that's the Transport Owners Organizations. That is private. That is private. But then the issue is, do we have the numbers? Do we have the number of vehicles that we require? And so when they come and then they sign to serving us, really I'm still in want of what other way or means are we able to move men and materials from the rack centers to their polling units and back.
Maybe it's an ongoing conversation.
INEC cannot buy, and INEC cannot purchase its own. I get the point you're making. There are one or two places where we have heard that they have political interest or leanings.
All right.
In such situations, we could lean more on the transport owners because we also deal with the transport owners. I think that is NARTO.
All right.
Yes, the Transport Owners Association.
Madam Victoria
we could deal with that, but
Eta-Messi.
how are they able to attend to us?
Madam Victoria Eta-Messi, it has been an absolute pleasure being in conversation with you. We hope to take the conversation forward and to see you more often here on our platform. Thank you so much.